So today I'm going to walk you through my process of how I bake a sourdough loaf every single day, and importantly how I've got lots of time left over for my family and my work commitments too. I'll kind of show you my schedule and show you why you don't need to be chained to your kitchen to do this, and as ever the full recipe will be listed in the video description. So I feed my starter each evening while I'm making dinner. Now I've adopted this feeding approach from Jack over on his channel Bake with Jack. This is all of the starter I have left from my last sourdough bake. It's just residue really, and I add 55 grams of water and 55 grams of strong bread flour. I give everything a good mix with a spoon, cover it loosely and leave it out at room temperature. Now because I'm using such a small quantity of starter to feed this batch, it takes a long time to ferment. This means that this is going to ferment all night and be ready for me to use tomorrow morning when I get up. And so far this has taken just 2 minutes of my time, which I'm in the kitchen for anyway because I'm preparing dinner. My kitchen is around about 18 degrees Celsius or 65 degrees Fahrenheit throughout this whole process. And I mix my main dough at 6:30 in the morning so that I can take my daughter to her school bus at 7:20. Now here's the starter I fed last night, nice and bubbly. It's about 2.5 times its volume and ready to bake with. So to my bowl I'm going to add 257 grams of room temperature water and 98 grams of the sourdough starter. Now as you can see I've barely got any sourdough starter left in my jar, so I'm just going to pop the lid on it, leave it out at room temperature until I'm ready to feed it again tonight. Now I really like this approach for feeding. It means that I'm not wasting any flour at all, and for this specific method where I'm baking every day it works really well. Give the mixture a quick mix with a spoon to break the starter down in the water. It doesn't need to be completely dissolved, so don't worry if you can still see a few bits. I'm then adding 8 grams of sea salt to the mixing bowl, give it another quick stir, and then in with 388 grams of strong bread flour. Mine's got a protein content of 13%. I mix everything together with a spoon. Now the secret to creating a really manageable dough is to use a sensible hydration and a good strong bread flour. I'll leave a link in the video description and in the card above to a video where I dive a bit deeper into choosing the right flour to bake with and choosing a hydration that suits that specific flour. Wet your hand and finish bringing everything together to create a rough dough. It really doesn't need to be smooth at this stage, but we are aiming to get rid of any pockets of flour and make sure there aren't any dry patches. This is the kind of texture you're shooting for. Now this bit of the process takes about 5 minutes, and then I just cover the dough, leave it out at room temperature for about 5 or 10 minutes to relax while I do a few jobs, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to give it a knead. I flip the dough out and I spend less than a minute bringing it together into a smooth piece of dough. I shape it into a ball, pop it back into the bowl and cover it. So now I'm going to get ready for kind of a major stretch and fold. I use a touch of water on the countertop to stop the dough sticking. If you haven't got a spray bottle, then they're well worth the investment. After flipping the dough out, I gently ease the dough out into an ever increasing circle. I keep working around the circumference of the dough, which gives the piece I've just stretched a little time to relax before I get round to that spot again. Now of course you don't need to pull your dough out this wide. I've really done it to demonstrate how using a good quality strong bread flour and a sensible hydration means this dough is very easy to handle. It's not too sticky. You can also see that it's become elastic and it's built some strength up, and we've barely done any serious manipulation with this dough whatsoever. Now from here I fold one side of the dough over onto the centre third and repeat with the other side, so I end up with 3 layers in kind of a long line. I take one of the longest sides and fold that over the centre third and then repeat with the other side, so I end up with a square shape. I fold each corner in, shape the dough into a ball, pop it back into its bowl, cover it, and now this is going to bulk ferment at room temperature. Now at this point I know I've got 6 hours for this to bulk ferment. That gives me enough time to take my daughter to school and get any jobs done. But if I wasn't coming home until later in the day and I wanted to extend that fermentation period, I would just use a little bit less starter in that main dough. Now I'm tremendously thankful to a chap called Ovi. He's been instrumental in helping me put together a spreadsheet which helps calculate a sourdough recipe. It just means you can adjust all of the ingredients and the amount of starter that's used used without having to do any crazy calculations. Now I'm going to be doing a dedicated video on that very soon, but before I do that, I'm going to send the spreadsheet out to my email subscribers to have a play around with. So if you're interested in receiving that before the video, then you'll find the link to subscribe to my email in the description. Now I like to let the dough ferment and expand to about 75% of its original volume. The dough feels inflated with gas, but definitely not ready to collapse. I give the dough a quick pre-shape into a ball to build a little strength and then leave it on the bench uncovered for 10 minutes. Now this dough is going to prove overnight in the fridge, and I find that dusting with rice flour is better at preventing sticking than if I use wheat flour. I add just a touch of flour to the top of the dough, flip it over. No complicated shaping here whatsoever. I just roll the dough up into a cylinder, tucking the ends in as I go, and when I get to the end, I press the dough down well just to make sure it's really well sealed. I give the dough a quick roll in the rice flour and pop it in the banneton. And at this point in the process, I'm probably up to about 18 to 20 minutes of total handling time. After an hour and a half, uncovered at room temperature, I can feel that the dough has expanded a little and it's beginning to gain some volume. So now I can pop the banneton into the fridge to finish its fermentation process. It's going to sit there uncovered until I'm ready to bake tomorrow. Now there's nothing left to do today, apart from feed my starter again at 9 o'clock tonight, so I'm ready to go again tomorrow. Now I normally bake this bread every morning after I've taken my little one to the bus, but because it's sitting in the fridge quite happily, it means I can adjust that schedule to suit me without any problems. I preheat my oven to 220 degrees Celsius for an hour with the baking stone placed on the oven shelf that slides in and out. I've taken the banneton straight from the fridge, so the dough is really easy to handle. A skin has formed on the dough, so I don't need to use any additional flour when I turn it out. And when I score the dough, I use the oval shape that the bottom of the basket has created to plot exactly where I'm going to cut. I hold the blade at roughly a 45-degree angle to the countertop, and a quick clean score from the top centre round to the right hand edge and then back round to the bottom centre gives a really nice shaped open ear. I don't use any ice cubes or water to create steam, and after sliding the dough onto the stone, I cover it with the pan and leave it to bake covered at 220 degrees Celsius for the first 20 minutes. Next up, I give my basket a clean. I use a soft brush to remove any flour, and if there's any stubborn bits of dough, then I use a harder bristled brush, but gently. I don't go crazy with it. The basket gets popped onto my windowsill to dry off until I'm ready to shape another piece of dough this afternoon. After 20 minutes, I remove the pot. The loaf will continue to bake at 220 degrees Celsius for another 30 minutes. Now this whole process has taken less than 30 minutes of actual hands-on time, and as I've only done one set of stretching and folding, it means I haven't been chained to the kitchen. Now one thing I would say about only incorporating one stretch and folds is that the crumb is a little irregular. Not quite as much as it would be with a no-knead recipe, but it's not quite as organised as it would be if I'd incorporated another couple of stretch and folds. Now most importantly, this schedule means that I can bake one loaf of bread every single day and still have time for work and family and stuff like that. And with a bit of tweaking, I'm sure you can make something like this work for you too. And it produces a pretty solid loaf of sourdough too. If you've been struggling with sticky dough, then check out this video here. And if you'd like to see that sourdough calculator before the video comes out, then you'll find a link in the video description. A huge thank you for watching. I'll see you again very soon. Stay tuned.